my first movie was a bit of a scandal in its native land. I wrote something that I think I initially called Orgy of the Blood Parasites, and then became The Parasite Murders, and then became Shivers, and in the US it's called They Came From Within. It was basically an image that I had, and I can't remember whether I actually dreamed it or read it somewhere, but it was two people lying in a bed at night, and the man wakes up, looks over to the woman, and sees her mouth open, and out of that mouth comes a spider and walks out of her mouth. And that image was really the crystal around which the rest of the film Shivers formed. I couldn't actually do a spider because it's really hard to make those legs move, especially on a low budget. So it became a parasite.
You got man, right? And you got parasites that live in, on, and around man, right? So, why not breed a parasite that can do something useful? Huh? A parasite that can take over the function of a human organ. Well, for example, you breed a parasite that you implant in the human body cavity, and it hooks into the circulatory system, and it filters the blood just like a kidney does. And so it takes a little blood for itself once in a while. What do you care? I mean, you got enough, you can afford to be generous.
I was at a film festival in Germany called the Hof Film Festival. Someone stood up, they had showed several of my early films, and he said, "How dare you show this film? You have so obviously stolen from the movie Alien." And I said, "But you know, this movie was made 5 years before Alien." And he said, "Ah, now we know who the thief is." In Shivers, I have parasites that live in your body that burst their way out, leap onto your face, do a bunch of stuff that the alien does in the movie Alien. It started really by being inspired by the New York Underground and New York Underground filmmaking. I really wasn't thinking in Hollywood terms or sort of feature film terms. I began by wanting to make underground films, and access to them was immediate because in the 60s zeitgeist, it was do your own thing. You know, you didn't have to follow somebody around carrying film cans for 30 years before you got to, say, action. You could just go out, rent a camera, find a camera, steal a camera, borrow one, and start shooting your own movie, and everything would work out from there. So I had actually done 2 short films and then 2 longer films in 35 millimeter with that sort of tone in mind, and really doing everything, carrying the cameras, cleaning the lenses, just sometimes shooting me and an actor and so on. And then I wrote a script that I thought was perhaps could be my first professional script. It could be my first movie as opposed to my first film, by which I meant I would actually get paid for doing this instead of paying for the film stock and so on. It took me about 3 years, really, before I could get it made, during which time I was almost on the verge of going to Hollywood, I have to say. Because Roger Corman was very interested in making the movie. There were a lot of people who thought, no, this is a perfectly reasonable film to make. And I was just that far away from leaving when funding came through, most of it from what was then called the Canadian Film Development Corporation, which was a government funding body. The film got made, and then everybody's worst fears came true if you happened to be a bureaucrat. There was an outraged article written about this movie, which pointed out that taxpayers' money had gone into this abomination.
Love to me, let's kiss, make up, kiss.
This hideous, pornographic, violent, nasty thing. And suddenly questions were being raised in the House of Commons about me and my movie and why was money being put into it. Of course, it was the first and only, at that time, movie that they had funded that actually made money back for the taxpayers, so that eventually kind of became a non-issue. But it became a bit of a scandal. For me, all art is subversive in some way, and that means that it cannot possibly abide by the sort of the rules of politeness and decorum that many mainstream movies thrive on. I mean, most mainstream movies are comfort. It's a cinema of comfort. It's meant to make you feel good and feel cozy. Even if it's got some scary moments in it, everything resolves okay, and it's really just there to reinforce the status quo and get you out of your own life a little bit for a few minutes. To me, that's not what art does. Art is reflective. It really forces you to reflect on yourself, on your situation, good or bad, make you think about things like what is human existence, what is the human condition really about, and so on and so on. So I think that real art must be subversive of the status quo to some extent. It doesn't mean that you're preaching political revolution necessarily, although that would be a possibility. So it's inevitable then, if you consider yourself an artist, that you are going to bother people, that you're going to disturb people, and that you're going to knock over a few walls. And I think even if that's not your main delight, as it is not really with me. I mean, my main delight, I think I'm very playful. I think playfulness is the main thing that I do. I play with the concepts, with the images, with the connections between things, the metaphors. And so I think I'm playful, not sort of hostile and nasty. But nonetheless, there's an urge to get under the surface of things. Sometimes I do that literally. I mean, I'm doing scenes of sort of autopsy and dissection and surgery. And yeah, you want to get under the surface to see what's really going on and how things really work. That does upset a lot of people. And to me, then it's an inevitable consequence of being a serious artist. When you find the look of the movie, the tone of the movie, the feel of it, it's a process that's ongoing. It's not suddenly one day you wake up and it's there, because it's delivered to the audience in many, many details. The color of walls and the shading of the light, the clothes that you use or don't use. And I mean, each movie has its own very specific little set of rules that it kind of generates. In a way, you're in each movie you're creating a biosphere that has to be complete in itself. It has its own weather system, it has its own ecology, and if there's something not functioning properly there, then the movie doesn't work. So to me, each movie is different because it has different demands. It makes different demands to make that work. But of course, the continuity comes from me and my sensibility, and then the sensibilities of those people that I work with and choose to work with continually. So I'm sure that that's where a lot of that comes from. It's a contribution of a lot of people.